I sit in my empty cubicle staring at the security badge I'm about to surrender after 8 years as a cybersecurity analyst for defense contractor Harrison Digital Solutions. The CFO's words echo in my mind, "You're too expensive." I watch the new offshore teams setting up at my workstation, their foreign accents filling the secure facility as they begin accessing classified Navy databases. My stomach churns knowing what's coming. Tomorrow, Admiral Thompson arrives for the quarterly security audit. The foreign contractors have no idea they're about to trigger the biggest security breach investigation in company history. My name is Zoe, and until yesterday, I believed loyalty and hard work meant something in corporate America. I was wrong. 8 years ago, fresh out of Georgetown University with a cybersecurity degree, I walked into Harrison Digital Solutions with dreams of protecting our nation's most sensitive information. CEO Bradley Harrison personally hired me, recognizing my passion for digital defense and my top secret security clearance potential. Those early years were everything I hoped they would be. I spent countless nights building security protocols from scratch, creating firewalls that could withstand sophisticated cyber attacks and developing encryption methods that kept submarine communication systems safe from foreign interference. 60-hour work weeks became normal as I climbed from junior analyst to senior cybersecurity specialist, earning the respect of Navy officials who trusted our company with their most classified projects. 3 major cyber attacks were thwarted because of systems I designed. Russian hackers tried penetrating our submarine navigation protocols in 2021, but my multi-layered defense system held firm. Chinese intelligence operatives attempted to access torpedo guidance systems the following year, only to find themselves trapped in honeypot networks I had carefully constructed. North Korean cyber warfare units made their attempt last spring, but my real-time threat detection algorithms caught them within minutes. My cubicle overlooked the Potomac River, where I could watch Navy vessels navigating the water while I protected their digital counterparts. Colleagues respected my expertise, and military liaisons praised my dedication to national security. Captain Sarah Collins, a retired Navy officer who served as our liaison, became my mentor, teaching me the real-world implications of cybersecurity failures. "Every line of code you write," she would say, "protects sailors who trust their lives to these systems." But corporate priorities shifted when Patricia Wells joined as Chief Financial Officer 18 months ago. Wells arrived from a manufacturing company with no understanding of defense contracting or security clearances. Her background was purely financial, focused on quarterly profits rather than national security obligations. From day one, she viewed cybersecurity as an expensive necessity rather than a critical mission. The warning signs began subtly. Wells questioned my overtime hours despite knowing that cyber threats never followed business schedules. She challenged my equipment requests, arguing that commercial-grade computers should suffice for classified work. Most concerning, she started attending security briefings where she clearly didn't understand the technical discussions but took detailed notes about personnel costs. Last month, Wells scheduled what she called a performance review, but felt more like an interrogation. She sat across from me in the sterile conference room, her laptop displaying spreadsheets instead of security assessments. "Your salary could hire 3 analysts," she announced without preamble. "The company needs to optimize resources in today's competitive market." I explained the complexities of security clearances, the years required to develop expertise in classified systems, and the irreplaceable institutional knowledge I possessed. Wells dismissed each point with corporate buzzwords about scalable solutions and resource allocation efficiency. She had already made her decision before our conversation began. "We're transitioning to a more cost-effective model." Wells continued, sliding a folder across the table. TechFlow Solutions provides excellent cybersecurity services at a fraction of current expenses. The folder contained profiles of 3 Mumbai-based analysts who would replace me immediately. My protests fell on deaf ears. These offshore contractors had impressive technical credentials, but zero experience with U.S. security protocols, no understanding of military systems, and questionable background verification. Wells had fast-tracked their temporary security clearances through bureaucratic loopholes, bypassing the thorough vetting process that took me 2 years to complete. "The decision is final," Wells stated, when I questioned the wisdom of giving foreign nationals access to submarine communication systems. "Your position has been eliminated effective immediately." The devastation hit like a physical blow. 8 years of dedication, countless nights protecting national security relationships built with Navy personnel who trusted my work, all dismissed for quarterly savings that would probably fund Wells's annual bonus. But the betrayal cut deeper when I realized this wasn't a sudden decision. Wells had been planning my replacement for months, secretly negotiating with TechFlow Solutions, while I continued working overtime to protect classified systems. The termination letter was already prepared, dated 3 days earlier. My security badge would be deactivated at 5 o'clock. The offshore team was scheduled to arrive the next morning, ready to access systems I had spent years securing. Wells had orchestrated every detail of my professional destruction, while I remained obliviously loyal to a company that saw me as an expense rather than an asset. Standing to leave that conference room, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Wells had been recording our conversation on her smartphone, probably to protect herself legally from wrongful termination claims. But worse than her calculated cruelty was what I saw through the conference room window. The TechFlow Solutions team was already in the building, moving into the secure wing with temporary badges Wells had personally authorized. Raj, Priya, and Vikram were unpacking laptops at workstations that required the highest security clearances. They were laughing and chatting casually while handling systems that controlled submarine positions worldwide. The security protocols I had spent years building were being dismantled in real time by people who had no understanding of their critical importance. Jake Morrison, my cubicle neighbor and the only junior analyst who understood my work, watched helplessly as the offshore team began connecting their personal devices to classified networks. His face reflected the same horror I felt. Tom Bradley, the security guard who had become a friend over 8 years of late-night work sessions, stood nearby looking uncomfortable but powerless to intervene. Walking out of that conference room, I realized that tomorrow's audit by Admiral Thompson would expose more than cost-cutting measures. Wells had unwittingly created the perfect storm for a catastrophic security breach, and I was the only person who fully understood the implications of what was about to unfold. The next morning, I returned to Harrison Digital Solutions, under the pretense of collecting personal items from my desk, but really to witness what I knew would be a disaster. The offshore team had been working through the night, and what I observed from the lobby made my worst fears seem optimistic. Raj Patel, supposedly the team leader, was 32 with excellent credentials from Mumbai Technical Institute, but his first action was downloading classified submarine communication protocols to his personal laptop for what he called backup purposes. He had no understanding that removing classified data from secure systems constituted a federal crime regardless of intent. Priya Sharma, their cyber defense specialist, possessed impressive certifications in commercial cybersecurity, but treated military encryption like any other corporate network. I watched in horror as she connected the classified system directly to the internet to troubleshoot a software compatibility issue, creating a direct pathway for foreign hackers to access Navy submarine positions. Vikram Singh, Their network security expert began photographing classified protocols displayed on his monitor, explaining to Jake Morrison that he needed to share the information with TechFlow's Mumbai headquarters for collaborative problem solving. The idea that classified Navy data would be transmitted internationally seemed perfectly reasonable to him. Their technical skills were undeniable, but their cultural and legal ignorance was breathtaking. They treated top-secret submarine navigation systems like typical corporate databases, applying standard business practices to networks that controlled vessels carrying nuclear warheads. The disconnect between their competence and their context was terrifying. Patricia Wells toured the secure wing with obvious satisfaction, pointing out cost savings to anyone who would listen. She had negotiated a contract paying TechFlow Solutions 1/3 of my annual salary for 3 full-time analysts, and she considered this her greatest accomplishment as CFO. Wells completely ignored the security violations happening around her, focusing solely on the financial metrics that would enhance her performance review. From my position in the lobby, I could see Jake Morrison growing increasingly agitated as he watched the offshore team's activities. Jake was 26, fresh from MIT with a computer science degree, and he understood enough about cybersecurity to recognize dangerous mistakes. But as a junior analyst, he had no authority to challenge Wells's decisions or stop the security breaches happening before his eyes. Tom Bradley, our security guard for 15 years, confided his concerns during my fake desk cleaning operation. "They ordered me to ignore protocol violations," he whispered, glancing nervously toward Wells's office. "Said the new team has special authorization for their methods." Tom had served in the Army before his civilian security career, and he understood the gravity of what was happening, but his job depended on following orders from management. Captain Collins called my personal phone around noon with alarming news. Admiral Thompson's quarterly audit had been postponed twice at Wells's request, supposedly due to system upgrades. Collins suspected Wells was trying to legitimize the offshore arrangement before the Navy discovered it, giving her time to present cost savings as successful innovation rather than security negligence. "Thompson will arrive tomorrow morning," Collins warned. "He's specifically interested in personnel changes affecting classified systems. This audit won't be routine." The implication was clear. Admiral Thompson had already heard rumors about security protocol changes and was coming to investigate potential violations. The personal stakes became apparent during my conversation with Collins. My security clearance was being questioned due to breaches occurring under my former supervision. Even though I had been terminated, my name remained associated with the systems now being compromised by foreign contractors. Wells was actively shifting blame for any security failures to my inadequate protocols, rather than accepting responsibility for her cost-cutting decisions. My reputation in the defense industry was being systematically destroyed by Wells's public statements. She had told other defense contractors that I was inflexible and resistant to innovation, suggesting that my termination resulted from inability to adapt rather than her negligent disregard for security requirements. Former colleagues were beginning to distance themselves, fearing that association with me might damage their own careers. Financial pressure mounted as my severance package depended on signing a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement that would prevent me from discussing security concerns with Navy officials. Wells had structured my termination to buy my silence while she solidified the offshore arrangement. Speaking out would cost me financially, while potentially exposing me to legal action for violating corporate confidentiality. The most disturbing discovery came when I accessed public records about TechFlow Solutions. The company had been founded only 18 months earlier, coinciding exactly with Wells's arrival at Harrison Digital Solutions. Their registered address was a shared office space in Mumbai, and their client list included exclusively American defense contractors who had recently implemented similar cost-cutting measures. Jake Morrison discreetly shared intelligence he had gathered about the offshore team's activities. They had accidentally deleted critical firewall logs while trying to optimize system performance, removing evidence of their own security violations. Vikram had disabled intrusion detection systems because they kept triggering alerts about his unauthorized access methods. Priya had shared login credentials with Mumbai headquarters, creating multiple access points for potential foreign intelligence exploitation. The scope of the security disaster became clear when I overheard Raj's video conference with TechFlow Mumbai management. He was describing classified Navy project details in casual conversation, treating sensitive submarine communication protocols like routine technical specifications. The offshore operation wasn't just violating security regulations, it was systematically harvesting classified information under the guise of legitimate contract work. Standing in that lobby watching foreign contractors dismantling 8 years of my security work, while Wells celebrated her cost savings, I realized this wasn't simple corporate incompetence. The coordination between Wells's arrival and TechFlow's founding, the systematic targeting of defense contractors, and the deliberate circumvention of security protocols suggested something far more sinister than cost-cutting innovation. Tomorrow, Admiral Thompson would walk into this facility expecting to find enhanced security measures protecting classified Navy systems. Instead, he would discover foreign nationals with questionable backgrounds accessing submarine communication protocols, while management celebrated the financial benefits of outsourcing national security to the lowest bidder. Unable to sleep that night, I used my remaining system access to investigate exactly what the offshore team had been doing during their first day. What I discovered made my worst suspicions seem naive. Using forensic techniques I had developed for tracking cyber intrusions, I traced their digital footprints through classified networks and found evidence of systematic intelligence harvesting disguised as routine maintenance. The offshore team had copied 14 terabytes of classified data to unsecured cloud servers registered to shell companies in 3 different countries. Submarine navigation codes, torpedo guidance systems, sonar detection algorithms, and communication encryption keys had all been systematically extracted and transmitted beyond our secure networks. This wasn't accidental incompetence. This was deliberate espionage executed by people who knew exactly what they were stealing. TechFlow Solutions had carefully crafted their cover story, but deeper investigation revealed disturbing connections to foreign intelligence services. Their Mumbai office shared an address with companies known to have ties to hostile governments. Their funding sources traced back to investment firms that were fronts for state-sponsored cyber warfare units. The 3 analysts weren't just unqualified contractors, they were professional intelligence operatives conducting a sophisticated penetration operation. Patricia Wells had never verified their backgrounds beyond basic technical certifications. The security clearance process she claimed to have expedited had never actually been completed. The offshore team was operating with temporary badges that Wells had personally authorized, bypassing every security protocol designed to prevent exactly this type of infiltration. Her cost-cutting initiative had become a foreign intelligence coup. The personal consequences of this discovery were immediate and devastating. My security clearance was officially suspended pending investigation of the breaches occurring under my former supervision. Defense industry contacts were avoiding my calls, and my reputation was being destroyed by Wells's narrative that I had left the systems vulnerable through inadequate security measures. The career I had built over 8 years was collapsing, while the real perpetrators continued their espionage operation. Financial pressure intensified as my severance package was withheld, pending resolution of the security investigation. Wells's non-disclosure agreement was designed to prevent me from discussing the situation with Navy officials, effectively buying my silence while she consolidated her offshore arrangement. Speaking out would cost me financially while potentially exposing me to prosecution for unauthorized disclosure of classified information. Desperate to find someone with authority to stop the intelligence operation, I attempted to contact Admiral Thompson directly. However, Navy protocol required security concerns to be reported through official channels, which meant going through Harrison Digital Solutions Management, the very people orchestrating the security breaches. The system designed to protect classified information was preventing me from reporting its compromise. Captain Collins met me at a coffee shop near the Pentagon, her face grave with concern. "The situation is worse than you know," she explained. "Similar arrangements are being implemented at 6 other defense contractors. Wells's scheme is part of a coordinated foreign intelligence operation targeting multiple companies simultaneously." The scope of the penetration extended far beyond Harrison Digital Solutions. "You could face federal prosecution for unauthorized access to company systems," Collins warned. "But if you don't act, submarine crews could die when their communication systems are compromised during actual missions." The moral complexity of the situation was crushing. Protecting myself legally meant allowing foreign intelligence services to continue endangering American lives. Jake Morrison had been secretly documenting security violations. He was terrified of losing his job and potentially facing criminal charges for exceeding his access authorization. Tom Bradley had been falsifying security logs at Wells' direct order, creating false documentation that the offshore team had followed proper protocols. Both men wanted to help, but feared the personal consequences of standing up to Wells's increasingly powerful position. My investigation revealed that Wells had been receiving substantial financial incentives from TechFlow Solutions disguised as consulting fees for business process optimization. Bank records showed regular payments coinciding with major security protocol changes that benefited the offshore team. Wells wasn't just cutting costs, she was being paid to compromise American national security. The intelligence operation was more sophisticated than simple data theft. The offshore team was implementing subtle modifications to security algorithms that would create backdoors for future exploitation. They were altering communication protocols to enable interception of submarine transmissions. They were modifying encryption systems to allow foreign governments to decode Navy traffic in real time during potential conflicts. Admiral Thompson's audit had been postponed twice at Wells's request, but investigation revealed that other Navy officials were becoming suspicious about personnel changes affecting classified systems. The postponements were buying time for the offshore team to complete their intelligence gathering and establish permanent backdoors before military oversight could discover the penetration. The most chilling discovery was evidence that foreign intelligence services had been planning this operation for months before Wells was hired. TechFlow Solutions had been created specifically to penetrate American defense contractors, and Wells had been recruited to facilitate their access to classified systems. Her entire tenure at Harrison Digital Solutions was part of a long-term espionage strategy. Standing in my apartment at 3 a.m, surrounded by printouts documenting the largest intelligence breach in defense contractor history, I realized that tomorrow's audit represented the only opportunity to expose the operation before it became permanently embedded in America's military systems. Admiral Thompson would arrive expecting a routine inspection, unaware that he was walking into an active foreign intelligence operation that had been systematically stealing submarine warfare capabilities for months. The weight of responsibility was overwhelming. My career was already destroyed, my finances were ruined, and my legal exposure was significant. But submarine crews serving around the world trusted their lives to systems that were now compromised by foreign intelligence services. The choice between personal safety and national security had never been more stark or more consequential. With less than 12 hours before Admiral Thompson's arrival, I knew this was my only chance to expose the espionage operation before it became permanently embedded in America's defense systems. The risks were enormous: career destruction, financial ruin, potential federal prosecution, but submarine crews worldwide trusted their lives to systems that foreign intelligence services were actively compromising. My plan required precise coordination with Jake Morrison and Tom Bradley, the only two people in the building who understood the severity of the situation and had access to document the ongoing violations. Jake possessed computer access that could demonstrate the security breaches in real time, while Tom controlled physical security measures that could guide Admiral Thompson to the most compromised areas of the facility. Jake met me at a diner near Harrison Digital Solutions at 6 in the morning, his face drawn with stress and exhaustion. "I've been documenting everything," he whispered, sliding a flash drive across the table. Screenshots of unauthorized data transfers, recordings of classified information being shared with Mumbai, evidence of deleted security logs. But if this goes public, my career in defense contracting is finished. The moral complexity weighed heavily on both of us. Jake was 26 with student loans, a mortgage, and dreams of advancing in cybersecurity. Exposing the intelligence operation would mark him as a troublemaker, making him unemployable in an industry that valued discretion above whistleblowing. But his MIT education had taught him that cybersecurity professionals have ethical obligations that transcend corporate loyalty. Tom Bradley's situation was even more precarious. At 54, with 15 years at Harrison Digital Solutions, he was close to retirement and dependent on his pension. Wells had explicitly ordered him to falsify security logs and ignore protocol violations, creating documentation that would make him legally complicit in the espionage operation. Speaking out would destroy his financial security while potentially exposing him to criminal prosecution. "I served this country for 8 years in the Army," Tom explained during our clandestine meeting in the parking garage. "I can't spend my retirement knowing I helped foreign spies steal submarine warfare capabilities." His military background made the betrayal personal, overriding his concerns about financial consequences. The evidence we compiled was overwhelming, but required careful presentation to Admiral Thompson. The offshore team had stolen terabytes of classified data, implemented backdoors in security systems, modified communication protocols to enable foreign interception, and established permanent access points for future espionage operations. Wells had facilitated everything while receiving financial incentives from the Foreign Intelligence Front Company. Captain Collins provided crucial intelligence about Admiral Thompson's inspection methods and priorities. "He'll focus on personnel changes affecting classified systems," she explained. "He's already suspicious about the offshore arrangement based on reports from other defense contractors. Your job is to ensure he sees the violations firsthand, rather than accepting Wells's prepared explanations." The most dangerous aspect of our plan involved positioning ourselves to witness the audit, while Wells attempted her elaborate deception. I would enter the building as a former employee, retrieving personal items, giving me legitimate access during the inspection. Jake would keep his computer logged into sensitive systems, allowing Admiral Thompson to observe unauthorized activities in real time. Tom would guide the inspection tour to areas where security violations were most obvious. Wells had prepared an extensive presentation portraying the offshore team as highly vetted security experts who represented innovative cost-cutting measures. She had doctored their credentials, fabricated security clearance documentation, and staged demonstrations designed to impress military auditors. The Admiral would see carefully rehearsed technical presentations rather than the chaotic security breaches occurring daily. My apartment had been broken into the previous night, and my research files documenting the intelligence operation had been stolen. This confirmed that Wells and her foreign partners knew about my investigation and were taking active measures to prevent exposure. The surveillance I had noticed over the past week intensified with unfamiliar vehicles parked outside my building and strangers following me to routine errands. Captain Collins warned that federal prosecutors might view my continued investigation as unauthorized access to classified systems, potentially resulting in espionage charges against me instead of the actual perpetrators. The irony, she noted grimly, is that stopping foreign espionage could be prosecuted as domestic espionage if Wells controls the narrative about what happened. The personal stakes couldn't be higher. My father had served 25 years in the Navy, including submarine duty during the Cold War, and he had taught me that national security obligations transcend personal interests. Submarine crews serving in hostile waters trusted their lives to communication systems that were now compromised by foreign intelligence services. The weight of that responsibility made career and financial considerations seem trivial. Jake positioned himself strategically for the morning inspection, ensuring his computer would display evidence of ongoing security violations when Admiral Thompson toured the facility. Tom arranged his duties to coincide with the audit timing, giving him natural authority to guide military personnel through secure areas. My role required the most careful timing, arriving as a former employee, collecting belongings while the inspection exposed Wells's deception. The night before the audit, we discovered Wells's most audacious deception. She had prepared a completely fabricated presentation showing the offshore team as highly qualified security specialists with pristine backgrounds and proper clearances. Admiral Thompson would be shown doctored credentials, staged technical demonstrations, and false documentation designed to legitimize the intelligence operation as innovative cost management. Standing outside Harrison Digital Solutions at dawn, watching the sunrise reflect off windows that concealed one of the largest intelligence operations in American history, I realized this moment would define not just my career, but potentially the safety of every submarine crew relying on compromised communication systems. The choice between personal security and national security had never been clearer or more consequential. Admiral Thompson's convoy would arrive in 3 hours, expecting a routine quarterly inspection of a trusted defense contractor. Instead, he would walk into an elaborate deception orchestrated by foreign intelligence services and facilitated by an American executive whose greed had overcome her patriotic obligations. Whether the truth emerged would depend on the courage of 3 people who had chosen duty over self-preservation. Admiral Thompson's black sedan arrived at Harrison Digital Solutions precisely at 9 o'clock, followed by 2 additional vehicles carrying his security detail and technical specialists. I watched from the lobby, my heart pounding as the most senior naval officer I had ever encountered stepped out of his vehicle. Tall, distinguished with the bearing of someone accustomed to command, he carried an aura of authority that made Wells' elaborate preparations seem suddenly fragile. Patricia Wells greeted the Admiral with obvious nervousness, masked as enthusiasm launching into her prepared presentation before he had fully entered the building. "Admiral Thompson, welcome to our facility. I'm excited to show you the innovative, cost-effective security solutions we've implemented since our last quarterly review." The Admiral's response was polite, but reserved, his experienced eyes already scanning the facility with the practiced attention of someone trained to spot irregularities. "Ms. Wells, I understand there have been significant personnel changes affecting classified systems. I'd like to review those modifications in detail." Wells guided the inspection party toward the secure wing where the offshore team had set up their operations, chattering enthusiastically about quarterly savings and efficiency improvements. Our new cybersecurity specialists bring fresh perspectives and technical expertise at a fraction of previous costs, she explained, apparently oblivious to the Admiral's increasingly skeptical expression. The first sign of trouble came when Admiral Thompson encountered Raj Patel at the main classified workstation. "State your name and security clearance level," the Admiral commanded with military directness. Raj fumbled through an explanation of temporary authorization and pending clearance completion, clearly unaware that accessing classified systems without proper clearance constituted a federal crime. "How long have you been working with U.S. military systems?" Admiral Thompson continued, his tone growing sharper as he observed Raj's obvious inexperience with Navy protocols. Raj's answer that Harrison Digital Solutions was his first American defense contract created visible tension in the inspection party. Wells attempted to deflect with technical jargon about innovative outsourcing solutions and cost-effective resource allocation. But Admiral Thompson's attention had shifted to Priya Sharma's workstation, where classified submarine schematics were displayed on an unsecured monitor visible to anyone walking past. "These are current submarine communication protocols," Admiral Thompson observed, his voice carrying dangerous calm. "Why are they displayed in an open workspace without proper security measures?" Priya's explanation about collaborative problem-solving with Mumbai headquarters caused an immediate reaction among the Admiral's security detail. Tom Bradley, positioned near the inspection route as planned, watched Admiral Thompson's growing alarm as he discovered unauthorized foreign IP addresses logged into classified networks' data transfer records, showing terabytes of information sent to offshore servers and security logs that had been obviously falsified to hide protocol violations. The facade collapsed completely when Admiral Thompson asked Vikram Singh about his background verification process. Vikram casually mentioned that TechFlow Solutions had expedited his placement without the usual security screening because American bureaucracy takes too long for modern business needs. The Admiral's expression shifted from skepticism to barely controlled anger. "Who authorized foreign nationals to access submarine warfare systems without proper security clearances?" Admiral Thompson demanded, turning to Wells with unmistakable authority. Wells's attempts to deflect responsibility became increasingly desperate and contradictory as she realized her carefully prepared deception was crumbling under military scrutiny. This was the moment I had been waiting for. Stepping forward from my position in the lobby, I approached Admiral Thompson with the comprehensive documentation Jake, Tom, and I had compiled. "Admiral Thompson, I'm Zoe Mitchell, former senior cybersecurity analyst for this facility. I have evidence that these individuals are not qualified contractors, but rather foreign intelligence operatives conducting systematic espionage." Wells immediately tried to discredit me. "This is a disgruntled former employee who was terminated for performance issues. She has no authority to speak about current operations." But Admiral Thompson's attention was focused on the documents I presented, bank records showing Wells's financial connections to TechFlow Solutions, evidence of data theft operations, and proof that the offshore team lacked basic security clearances. The inspection transformed from routine audit to active security investigation as Admiral Thompson realized the scope of the intelligence operation. His security detail immediately began securing classified materials, while he ordered all computer systems shut down pending federal investigation. The offshore team's casual demeanor evaporated as they understood the gravity of their situation. "Ms. Wells," Admiral Thompson stated with icy formality, "you will explain how foreign nationals gained access to classified submarine systems, why proper security protocols were circumvented, and what oversight measures were implemented to prevent unauthorized disclosure." Wells's responses became increasingly incoherent as she struggled to justify decisions that were clearly indefensible. Jake Morrison's strategically positioned computer displayed real-time evidence of the security breaches Admiral Thompson was discovering. Unauthorized data transfers, modified encryption algorithms, and foreign access logs created an undeniable record of espionage activities that Wells could no longer explain away as cost-cutting innovations. The Admiral's technical specialists began comprehensive forensic analysis of compromised systems, while his security personnel detained the offshore team for questioning by federal authorities. What had begun as quarterly oversight was rapidly becoming the exposure of one of the largest intelligence operations in defense contractor history. Captain Collins arrived with FBI cybersecurity specialists, having coordinated federal response to the security breach. The facility was transformed from corporate workspace to active crime scene as investigators secured evidence of systematic espionage operations targeting multiple defense contractors simultaneously. Wells's final desperate attempt to shift blame backfired spectacularly. "Zoe Mitchell designed the security systems that were compromised," she screamed as federal agents prepared to escort her from the building. "She orchestrated everything out of revenge for being fired." Admiral Thompson's response was measured but devastating. Ms. Mitchell's documentation prevented foreign intelligence services from completing their penetration of submarine warfare systems. The investigation will determine whether her actions constitute heroic whistleblowing or whether your decisions constitute treasonous negligence. The implication was unmistakable. Wells's actions had crossed the line from corporate malfeasance into potential treason, while my intervention had prevented catastrophic damage to national security. The power dynamic that had destroyed my career 24 hours earlier was completely reversed as federal authorities took control of the investigation. Standing in that lobby watching Patricia Wells being escorted out in handcuffs while Admiral Thompson commended my dedication to national security, I realized that sometimes the most devastating betrayals create opportunities for the greatest triumphs. The woman who had destroyed my career to fund foreign espionage was now facing decades in federal prison, while I was being recognized as a national security hero. Within hours of Admiral Thompson's discovery, Harrison Digital Solutions was swarming with FBI cybersecurity specialists, Naval Criminal Investigative Service agents, and Defense Department security auditors. What had begun as a routine quarterly inspection had exploded into one of the largest counter-espionage investigations in recent American history. The forensic analysis revealed the stunning scope of the intelligence operation. TechFlow Solutions hadn't just stolen classified data, they had systematically penetrated 14 defense contractors over 18 months, harvesting submarine warfare capabilities, missile guidance systems, radar technologies, and communication protocols worth billions of dollars on the international intelligence market. Patricia Wells's financial records exposed a web of foreign payments disguised as consulting fees, business development bonuses, and investment opportunities. She had received over $600,000 from shell companies controlled by hostile intelligence services, accepting payment for facilitating access to America's most sensitive military technologies. The offshore team's true backgrounds emerged during federal interrogation. Raj Patel was a graduate of intelligence training programs run by foreign military services. Priya Sharma had previously worked for cyber warfare units, targeting Western infrastructure. Vikram Singh specialized in communication system penetration for hostile governments. None of them were legitimate cybersecurity consultants. They were professional espionage operatives. TechFlow Solutions was exposed as an elaborate front operation with tentacles reaching across multiple countries. Their Mumbai office was a facade for coordination centers in nations hostile to American interests. Their funding sources traced back to state-sponsored intelligence agencies that had invested millions in penetrating American defense contractors through exactly this type of operation. Congressional hearings were announced within a week, as representatives demanded to know how foreign intelligence services had successfully penetrated multiple defense contractors simultaneously. The scope of the security breach raised questions about oversight of classified outsourcing and the adequacy of background screening for foreign contractors working on sensitive projects. CEO Bradley Harrison returned from his Swiss business trip to find his company at the center of an international espionage scandal. The man who had hired me 8 years earlier was now facing potential criminal charges for negligent oversight of classified systems. His absence during the crisis had left Wells with unchecked authority to implement her devastating cost-cutting measures. Harrison Digital Solutions' stock price collapsed by 70% within days as news of the security breach became public. Government contracts worth hundreds of millions were suspended pending investigation. The company's reputation, built over decades of reliable defense work, was destroyed by Wells' 18 months of foreign-sponsored sabotage. My personal vindication was swift and comprehensive. Admiral Thompson personally recommended me for immediate security clearance restoration and upgrade, noting that my actions had prevented catastrophic damage to submarine warfare capabilities. The Defense Department issued a public commendation recognizing my dedication to national security despite personal and professional risks. Media coverage transformed me from disgraced former employee to national security hero within days. Major news outlets featured my story as an example of individual courage protecting American interests against sophisticated foreign intelligence operations. The narrative shifted completely from Wells's portrayal of me as an inflexible troublemaker to recognition as a patriotic whistleblower. Captain Collins became a powerful advocate, testifying before congressional committees about my crucial role in exposing the intelligence operation. Her military credentials and first-hand knowledge of the situation provided credible support for my actions during the most vulnerable period of the investigation. Jake Morrison and Tom Bradley were protected as cooperating witnesses rather than punished for their roles in exposing the security breach. Jake's documentation had provided crucial evidence of ongoing violations, while Tom's guidance during Admiral Thompson's inspection had ensured the discovery of the most damaging security compromises. The broader implications of the case extended far beyond Harrison Digital Solutions. Other defense contractors began emergency internal audits to identify similar security breaches. New federal regulations were proposed to prevent foreign access to classified systems through outsourcing arrangements. The case became a landmark example of how corporate cost-cutting could enable foreign espionage. Wells's arrest on federal espionage charges marked the beginning of what prosecutors called the largest defense contractor penetration case in decades. Her attempts to flee the country were thwarted when customs agents found classified documents and encrypted communication devices in her luggage during a planned trip to Switzerland. The investigation revealed that Wells had been planning to disappear with stolen classified data worth millions on the international intelligence market. My intervention hadn't just prevented ongoing espionage, it had stopped the permanent theft of submarine warfare capabilities that would have endangered American forces worldwide. Federal prosecutors built their case around evidence that Jake, Tom, and I had compiled demonstrating systematic intelligence gathering disguised as routine contract work. Wells's financial connections to foreign intelligence services provided clear motivation for her actions, while the offshore team's professional backgrounds proved the deliberate nature of the operation. The personal transformation was overwhelming. 6 weeks after being fired as an expensive liability, I was testifying before Congress about cybersecurity vulnerabilities and receiving job offers from every major defense contractor in the country. My expertise had become legendary in the intelligence community, and my dedication to national security over personal interests had earned respect throughout the defense establishment. Standing in the Hart Senate office building, preparing to testify about the largest intelligence operation I had helped expose, I reflected on how devastating betrayals can create opportunities for meaningful service. Patricia Wells's attempt to destroy my career had inadvertently positioned me to protect submarine crews whose lives depended on systems she was selling to foreign intelligence services. The case proved that individual integrity could overcome corporate corruption, that courage could triumph over conspiracy, and that patriotic duty could defeat profitable betrayal. Sometimes the worst professional disasters lead to the most important personal victories, especially when those victories serve something larger than individual interests. 6 months after Admiral Thompson's inspection exposed the intelligence operation, Patricia Wells stood in federal court, receiving a 20-year prison sentence for espionage, accepting bribes from foreign intelligence services, and conspiracy to steal classified information. The judge noted that her actions had betrayed not only her employer and colleagues, but the submarine crews whose lives depended on the systems she compromised for personal profit. TechFlow Solutions was completely dismantled by international law enforcement, with arrests made in 6 countries as the scope of the intelligence network became clear. The offshore team members were deported and permanently banned from entering the United States, while their handlers faced prosecution in their home countries for conducting espionage operations against American interests. Standing in my new office overlooking the Pentagon, I watched the American flag flying over the headquarters of the Department of Defense and marveled at the journey that had brought me here. Admiral Thompson had personally recommended me for a senior cybersecurity position with the Naval Information Warfare Command, where I now led a team protecting submarine communication systems from exactly the type of threats Wells had enabled. Harrison Digital Solutions had offered me Patricia Wells' former position as Chief Financial Officer, but I chose a different path. Instead of returning to corporate defense contracting, I established my own cybersecurity consulting firm, specializing in counterintelligence protection for companies handling classified information. My first major contract came from the Navy itself, seeking expertise in preventing future penetration operations. Jake Morrison joined my consulting firm as a partner, bringing his MIT-trained analytical skills and his experience documenting corporate security violations. His courage in exposing the intelligence operation had marked him as someone willing to prioritize national security over corporate loyalty, making him invaluable in helping other companies identify similar vulnerabilities. Tom Bradley accepted my offer to head security operations for the new firm, applying his 15 years of defense contractor experience and his military background to physical security measures. His decision to risk his retirement benefits by supporting the investigation had demonstrated integrity that made him perfect for protecting other companies from internal threats. Captain Collins joined our advisory board, providing military perspective on the real-world implications of cybersecurity failures. Her mentorship during the darkest period of my career had been invaluable, and her continued guidance helped ensure our work remained focused on protecting the people who depended on secure military systems. The Defense Department awarded me its highest civilian honor for protecting national security, with the citation noting that my actions had prevented foreign intelligence services from obtaining submarine warfare capabilities that would have endangered American forces worldwide. The ceremony was attended by submarine commanders whose crews had unknowingly benefited from my intervention. Congressional testimony about the case led to comprehensive reforms in defense contractor oversight. New regulations required enhanced background screening for foreign personnel, mandatory reporting of offshore arrangements affecting classified systems, and regular counterintelligence audits of companies handling sensitive information. My recommendations became federal law protecting future submarine crews from similar betrayals. Speaking engagements at universities and professional conferences allowed me to teach the next generation of cybersecurity professionals about the ethical obligations that transcend corporate loyalty. Students learned that protecting national security sometimes requires personal sacrifice, but that courage in the face of corporate corruption can prevent catastrophic damage to American interests. The consulting firm's success exceeded all expectations, with 12 employees within 6 months and contracts protecting classified systems across multiple government agencies. My experience exposing foreign intelligence operations had created expertise that was invaluable to companies seeking to prevent similar penetrations of their own operations. Personal fulfillment came not just from professional success, but from the knowledge that submarine crews serving in hostile waters could trust their communication systems because foreign intelligence services had been prevented from obtaining those capabilities. Every secure transmission, every successful mission, every safe return represented lives protected by standing up to corporate corruption. The financial recovery was remarkable. From unemployment and potential bankruptcy 6 months earlier, I now owned a growing business, employed loyal colleagues who shared my values, and possessed expertise that commanded premium rates from clients seeking genuine security rather than cost-cutting facades. Bradley Harrison, the CEO who had hired me 8 years earlier, personally apologized for allowing Wells to destroy my career and offered to fund my new consulting firm. His company had survived the scandal by implementing the most stringent security protocols in the industry, often consulting with my firm to ensure their measures met the highest standards. The most satisfying moment came when Admiral Thompson visited our offices to discuss expanding our Navy contracts. Your willingness to sacrifice your career to protect classified systems represents the finest tradition of civilian service to the military, he said. Submarine crews around the world owe their safety to your courage. Reflecting on the journey from corporate betrayal to national recognition, I realized that Patricia Wells had inadvertently created the opportunity for my most meaningful work. Her attempt to destroy my career for foreign profit had instead positioned me to build something far more valuable, a company dedicated to preventing similar betrayals of American national security. The life lesson became clear through experience. Sometimes the most devastating professional setbacks create opportunities for the most important personal missions. When powerful people prioritize profit over principle, individual courage can protect countless lives and preserve national interests that transcend corporate balance sheets. Standing at my office window watching Navy personnel enter the Pentagon to coordinate the defense of freedom around the world, I understood that getting fired had been the beginning of my most important work. Protecting the country I love from those who would sell its secrets for personal gain was worth every risk, every sacrifice, and every moment of uncertainty during the darkest period of my career. The ultimate vindication was knowing that somewhere in the depths of the ocean, submarine crews were conducting missions with communication systems that foreign intelligence services had failed to penetrate, because one person chose duty over safety, courage over comfort, and national security over personal security. Have you ever faced a situation where doing the right thing required significant personal sacrifice? Your experiences and perspectives matter to this community. Please like this video if you believe courage can triumph over corruption. Subscribe for more stories about individuals protecting American interests. Share this story with others who value integrity over profit, and comment below about times when standing up for your principles led to unexpected opportunities. Thank you for watching this story about how devastating betrayals can become gateways to meaningful service. Until next time, may you find the courage to choose duty over safety when your country's security depends on your decision.